Okay, the next topic that we will be going over is your gunline commands. We will put these on our rocks later, just for your reference. But there is 10 portions to your gunline commands. There is 9 on your computer record itself. We'll go over computer records later, as I stated before. First thing first is calling the mortars to follow. Mortars to follow. What that means, mortars to follow, is the mortars that are actually going to be prosecuting this mission. Okay, so when gunline commands happen, this is after the observer has spotted the target, sent the call for fire. We've sent the MTO back. The FTC chief has gotten all the data from the plotters, and now we are ready to prosecute. We're ready to give the gunline commands and prosecute the mission. All right. So starting with mortar to follow. In our instance, we are how many mortars? 2, which is a what? Half section. Technically, it's a half section, right? But we'll call it a section. All right. So it's a section of mortars. The reason why it's called a half section is because a squad, being freaking 4 mortars, technically a section is reduced. 2 teams. Anyway, section. Very similar to that, right? So first thing first, the FTC chief will call section, and then just a reminder, you'll say everything back. The hard part for FTC chiefs is usually when they, like how they break up each piece, because sometimes they say too much, and then you guys trying to say it back, it's difficult. So breaking it up individually to each piece is important. So we'll say you got your mortars to follow is section. Next is your shell fuse. Shell and fuse. Shell fuse sounds like firing HE quick. HE quick meaning HE being the shell, quick being the fuse setting. Okay? Yes, next is mortars to fire. So, difference between mortars to follow and mortars to fire is if you have one gun, that's the adjusting gun. This is going to be the one that's actually going to be firing on this data. The other gun is just following along. So, section, and then firing HE quick, and then gun 2. Gun 2 being the adjusting gun, that's the mortar to fire. Next is your method of fire. That's talking about your number of rounds in the adjust, your number of rounds in the effect. In addition, if you're firing, say, HE quick in the adjust and HE delay in the effect, you'll add that in here. So section, firing HE quick, gun 2, 1 in the adjust, 3 in the effect, HED, or HE delay. All right, you can also put that in shell fuse if you want to. So you could say section, firing HE quick in the adjust, firing HED in the effect. Gun 2. Make sense?
Good.
Okay. Me personally, I always put it in method of fire. It just makes more sense. Because then you're kind of, if you put it up here, then you're already kind of stating method of fire as it is. So I wouldn't do it twice. Next is your deflection. Sounds exactly like deflection. You guys say deflection back, and then they give you the number, the 4-digit mil number, and then you guys say the number back. And then just remember that it's always expressed individually. The numbers are expressed individually. So 2, 8, 0, 0. It sounds like that, right? And it's going to be you're going to respond that exact same way. All right, next is going to be your charge. How many charges do we have? 4. 4. There's no such thing as charge 5 as much as some people want to say, right? We're not going to get into that. But you've got your charge. It'll say how many increments are going to be on that round, on those rounds for that mission. And then your elevation. Actually, yes. So, what, technically speaking, you could put it all right. So technically speaking, if you're running an Illume mission or something with a mechanical time fuse, then your fuse setting would go after charge. That is per what is on the computer record, right? But in most Gunline Command smart packs, it's going to be after elevation. My recommendation is you're just going to say it like how you would on a computer record, because you're going to be reading off of that whenever you're freaking shouting it out. All right. So, and then give your elevation, and then your command being that when ready, at my command, or by piece by round at my command. You don't necessarily need to say TOT to the gun line, but if you have an intelligent gun line, like you can, it's fine. But your command is really when ready or at my command, and you're not saying when ready because it's what?
It's going to be at my command.
Well, because when ready is standard, right? So you don't have to say it. So it'll sound like section. Fire an HE quick.
Fire an HE quick.
Gun 2.
Gun 2.
1 in the adjust, 3 in the effect.
1 in the adjust, 3 in the effect.
Deflection.
Deflection.
Blah, 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 blah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Charge 2.
Charge 2.
And there's no fuse setting here, so elevation.
Elevation.
1, 2, 0, 0.
1, 2, 0, 0.
At my command.
At my command.
So I say at my command, you guys say at your command.
Your command.
Alright. Pretty easy. This is your gunline commands. This does not change. Alright? The only thing that changes is the contents of each. So
Like a lozenge or something.
So what would change is your method of fire is usually the thing that changes. If you are on a timeline, like a continuous, interrupted, or non-standard timeline, you would put that into method of fire. If you are doing a split section, you would start out by only calling one gun. To make it easier for people to make it easier for the gun line, you would say, stand by for individual gun data before you get into your gun line commands. So that way, you know, so it's like stand by for individual gun data, and then you say gun 1, firing HE quick. You don't need to do mortar to fire because it's only one gun. Or you could say like first section, second section, if you're running with multiple guns, like more than freaking what we have. But dividing it up if you're doing that split section stuff. Second section, first section, second section, firing HE quick, gun 2, 1 in the adjust, 3 in the effect, deflection, charge, elevation, at my command. First section, firing HE quick, on timeline, TOT, this, freaking -2 to +2, 1 round every 30 seconds. We'll get into that stuff when we go on the timeline, alright? It's all in method of fire here.
So would that be said when we're actually shooting like the borders, like you're saying timeline -2 +2?
Well, so whenever in a realistic scenario, we are on a range or in a field op or whatever. This is what I'm gonna say, or this is what your chief says. He's gonna say, section, firing HE quick, gun 2, one in the adjust, 3 in the effect, deflection, charge elevation at my command. For timelines and that specifically, it's up to him, it's up to the chief on how he wants to break that down for you, but it needs to be specified. So, usually you want to give the gun line the least amount of, you don't want to give them too much information because there's some information that they don't need to know. But they need to know that they're firing a continuous timeline, 1 round every 30 seconds for 2 minutes. That's basically it. So it could sound like, we'll just do it. Section!
Section!
Firing HE quick.
Fire HE quick.
Gun 2.
Gun 2.
Firing continuous timeline.
Firing continuous timeline.
From -2 to +2.
From -2 to +2.
1 round every 30 seconds.
1 round every 30 seconds.
Deflection.
Deflection.
And so on and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. All right, so that is your gunline commands. Things to remember when you're going over deflection and elevation, always expressed in individual numbers, 1200 or 3200, breaking it down like that, all right? Good. Any questions on gunline commands?
Sergeant, if they gave you a TOT like that, would it be the squad leader keeping track of the time? Or
Yes, it's gonna be the FTC keeping
Or
track.
the FTC?
Yes, it can be dwindled down to the squad leaders as well, but that's more of a win-ready situation. Not necessarily win-ready, but most often the FTC is gonna be in control during a TOT because that means that there's other units on station and it needs to be a little more restrictive. I have seen it to where squad leaders control the times though. So say for instance, we just have a regular suppression mission or a duration suppression. We have a duration suppression from -4 to +4, 1 round every 30 seconds. I give that information to the squad leaders and the FTC chief can call that first volley fire and then the squad leaders can follow and drop their rounds every 30 seconds after that. You just have to designate that. You as the chief need to tell the squad leaders, after you're done with your gunline commands, hey, freaking gun 1, gun 2, squad leaders, I'm gonna call the first round. You guys are gonna do the rounds, 1 round every 30 seconds on you, okay? And then they'll be like, Roger, whatever. So then whenever they half-load fire, they're gonna start their timer, 1 round every 30 seconds for, I said -4 to +4 for 8 minutes. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Cool. That answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Cool. All right, anything else on gunline commands?
Sorry, what exactly is the -4 +4 or -2 +2?
So that is how many minutes we are suppressing for. So we went over timelines, right? With Peters.
Yes, sir.
So in your timelines with the continuous timeline, that is from -1 to +1, and it's 1 round every 30 seconds. Because you go from -1 to -30 seconds to TOT to +30 seconds to +1, right? So that -1 and that -4 and all those are minutes, right? And it's minus because it's 4 minutes before TOT. And if it's plus, then it's 4 minutes after TOT.
So you're suppressing them and keeping them down. Time on target would be when a H-10 Warthog comes into the strafe, and then afterwards you continue having suppress. Or is time on target just for when you want your actual rounds to hit?
I can get more into detail on that when we go over timelines. I will say though that it is basically that, but if you have a continuous timeline, you still have HE impacts on the TOT timeline. but something else is happening during that, yes.
There you go. So that'd be, sorry, real quick, I know that you're a bit later, but that'd be more for like natural fixed wing, and then an interrupter would be more for like rotor wing.
Yes, and that's absolutely correct. That is the general consensus, although anytime you get past mortars and you get into JFO and JTAC, they don't like using that terminology just because it is completely up to the situation.
There you go.
Because sometimes fixed wing can get that low to where they're within max ord and we have to do an interrupted timeline. Or rotary wing can have a attack heading that isn't going to mess with our rounds, so we do not have to have an interrupted timeline. It is completely situation dependent, but that is the usual consensus, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions on gunline commands?
So just like, so -1 is 1 minute before TOT, and then +1 is 1 minute after TOT. That's right.
So say for instance, everybody check your watches real quick. It is currently 10:29, right? If I were to call a TOT, I would call it TOT just by the minutes, I wouldn't call it by the hour. If I were to say TOT 10, I can't go back in time, so that means it's the following hour. So it'd be 11:10, right? If I were to call TOT 50, right now it's 10:29, that's freaking, what, 21 minutes from now? So that's 21 minutes from now, so then we know that that is our TOT. So you're only calling it by minutes, you're not calling it by hours.
There you go.
Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Cool. We'll get into all that math stuff later for timelines. Something to reference whenever you're talking about gunline commands is it is simpler than what it sounds like. It's all going to be on your computer record for you as the FTC chief or for you as the plotter. It will be on your computer record for you to just read off of. Because when you fill out your computer record, you'll have all this information pre-done, like written up by the time that the boards are ready. And all you have to do is read off your paper.
So,
The hard part is just spacing it out to where you guys can like say it back the right way. Because I know a lot of people are just like, section firing HE quick, gun 2-1 in the adjuster in the effect. And then people are just like, section. And then they just don't say the other half of the stuff because they lost it. So breaking it up, like how I did earlier, is a good way to get that.
so the computer data you're saying, is that like actual paper that you have and then you put it in a computer later?
Computer record sheet?
Yeah.
So the term computer, before computers were the thing that you would clickety-clackety on, a computer was somebody who compiled data.
There you go.
So it is the record sheet for a computer. The
Computer.
FTC chief as a whole is a computer in that instance. So he's compiling the data from the call for fire and creating gunline data. So he's computing data.
And that's all the data that you hold for the 3 years?
Yes, I mean, it is all government documentation that you would be, that you would hold on for 3 years. I still have all the stuff from my last deployment as well as the previous deployment after that.
And then is that like up to, there's a little like tangent, but is that up, just up to the, whoever the FTC is to hold on to that, or is there an actual like, you turn those records in somewhere?
Well, they are unclassed, they don't have classification, they're not crazy, like, you can really just hold on to them. Although, they do have grids on them, so you do want to be, you still want to have them in a secure location, they are still government documents. For me, they're just they're all up in a safe, that I won't tell you where it is, so. But you're just, usually we leave it to the FTC chief. I've been in a section before where we gave it to the platoon commander, and then he maintained them, just because he wanted to. He wanted to like look back on the records for some reason. I don't know. Doing weird things, but anyway, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, sir.
Okay. Any other questions on gunline commands?
I got a question. When saying the commands, if you were to say section, would you need to say mortars and fire, like a specific word that like, can you skip over that because you say sections? Can you say it like specific, like saying for example, you're saying gun two, but if you're saying section, isn't that like all the guns available to?
Okay, so you are getting the awareness of all the guns available, right? But who's actually firing? Who's firing that adjustment? That's gun two. So you're calling gun two specifically to pay attention to that data. Everybody's putting in that data, but it's stating, it's reminding gun two that they're the ones that are gonna fire this adjustment. So for instance, if you're in a situation where gun one has to fire this because gun two is doing something else, you still have to state that. You still have to specify that. It's a little bit harder in a section of two guns, but if you're thinking about the usual battalion level asset of a 81 section of 8 guns, or an 81's platoon of 8 guns, then it gets a little bit more serious of you're calling like one squad to do something, another squad to do the other thing, and one specific gun is the adjustment, usually being that center gun 4 or 5.
Sergeant, I have a question, just real quick. During our field op, I noticed they would always say one in the adjust and 3 in the effect. Is that what you were saying earlier, that it's not always going to be one in the adjust round? It's probably going to be more.
Three in the effect is for once you get on target, it's 3 in the effect.
Right, so I get what you're asking. It is dependent on the target description. So the reason why I say that is it's also dependent on the amount of rounds that we have. Say we have an infinite amount of rounds. I'm gonna do more than 1 round in the adjust. I'm gonna do 5 in the adjust because why not, right? I want effects on that target, and if I don't have effects on the target with that first adjustment, I'm still scaring the crap out of them, right? And then for my fire for effect, we'll drop 30 rounds. Like, we have infinite rounds, we'll drop 30 rounds. We are going to annihilate those guys. It is about the rounds that you have allotted, the amount of rounds you have allotted, as well as the target description. So if we were to, for some reason, have to attack a tank, we would do more rounds for that than we would a fire team, correct? Because a fire team can get schwacked within 3 rounds. But a tank, it's gonna need a little bit more than that. It's also going to need a different fuse setting, because HE delay or HE procs, you're gonna wanna mix the two, because procs can damage sensors and delay can damage tracks. But quick isn't really gonna do anything because that's on it, or that's, yes, 0.05, no, that's delay. But for quick, that's on impact, and we know that tanks have ERA, so it's not really gonna do anything. So you wanna do delay, or you wanna do procs. So that is why it would change. So then, if it was a tank, you could do like 2 in the adjust, 10 in the effect. And it's just depending on that target description and how many rounds you have. Because you don't wanna burn through all your rounds just because you want to.
So the effect can always change, and the fire for effect is standard 3 rounds, 10 rounds, whatever they say.
Yeah, so standard, your standard is 1 in the adjust, 3 in the effect.
Okay.
But it will change depending on those 2 things.
Okay.
Because say you have a squad stretched out, like along an MSR, 3 rounds ain't gonna cut it. You're gonna need to add more rounds to that. You're also gonna have to change the type of mission you're gonna do, but that's a different story.
I don't know why, but it kind of just sparked the question when he asked that. What's the radius? Like, say you're to drop 10 rounds, what's the circle radius
Doesn't that depend on the
that them
sheath?
10 rounds would scatter?
What'd you say?
It depends on the sheath.
Yep, so it depends on the sheath that we will be firing from. And good point, because that was exactly the next thing that we're gonna get into. So, before I move on to sheaths, anything else on the fire command? Nope, all right, cool, so sheaths. Your sheaths you've got 5 major types of sheaves. It's sheafs or sheaves, however you want to say it. Doesn't really matter. We're going to cut that cake however you guys can retain that. Right? Sheafs or sheaves. What is our standard sheaf?
Linear sheaf.
Is it
Or
linear?
a lazy W.
No, so that is the way that we set in our guns. But what is the type of sheaf that is standard to us?
Parallel?
It is parallel. All right. There's a few ditties to remember for. There's a few ditties to remember for sheaves, and for parallel, the ditty is same deflection, same elevation. What I mean by that is all of your guns, say we've got 4 guns, are impacting in the exact same way that the guns are on the ground in the formation. So if they're in a lazy W, those rounds are impacting in a lazy W. Exactly how the freaking guns are laid. So I will draw it out for you. If they are in a line like this, your impacts are going to be in a line like this. That is your parallel. Everybody has the exact same data. They have the exact same deflection, the exact same elevation. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
We'll I'll label it parallel, all right? What's your question? Sheaf? Sheaf?
My
Yeah.
failing of language arts is Canadian.
Sheaf. Sheaf. Technically speaking, the plural is sheaves. Alright, it's just like moose and meese, you know, just about that bad.
So parallel, same deflection, same elevation.
Yeah.
The sheet is Barbara's haircut.
It's lazy W.
Yeah.
So.
Alright, anyway, so we have our parallel sheaf. Next, we're going to go into our linear sheaf. Our linear sheaf. The ditty for that one is different deflection, different elevation.
Show my haircut and that should be
I'll just demonstrate.
parallel. Parallel.
Says
Sure.
Do me a favor, guys, please close both of the tabs. All right, so linear sheaf. Say, for instance, we are trying to prosecute a target that is on an MSR. It's a convoy. You know what? Maybe it's a convoy of LAVs, all right? They are on this road, and we want to prosecute this target, but you see the angle in which they are, or the road is in comparison to how we are. So we would have to have a different range for each of these targets for us to actually impact. Because if we were to just do it in a parallel sheaf, we would be impacting like this. Does that make sense? So gun 1, 2, and 3 would basically be doing nothing. So we're changing the deflection and the elevation for gun 1, 2, and 3, so that way they can impact on this road. I'll show you guys how that works when we get into FDC.
So linear is like for a moving target.
Linear is not for moving target, it is mainly just for something on the line. It's linear, line, it's on the line, it doesn't have to be parallel to us or perpendicular to us in any way. It could be at any angle you want. But for instance, say they're on an MSR here too, we don't really need to do a linear sheaf because they're already parallel to us. So we wouldn't have to do anything in this instance. We wouldn't have to make any changes. It's still technically a linear sheaf, but we're just firing it in parallel. The only reason why this one is specified as a linear is because we have to change the deflection and elevation for us to be on target. Make sense? Okay. Next, we've got an open sheaf. So,
Sergio,
what's up?
for the linear sheet, do you also put different charges? Or do you see charge?
That's completely dependent on the range to the target. So, I mean, charges, most charges have about 800 to 1200 meters of area in which they work in before you have to swap to another charge. So, if these guys are only like 100 meters apart, right, you don't need to swap the charge. All you need to do is change the elevation and deflection. Sound good?
That's right.
If you guys look into TFT at some point in your careers, you'll notice what Sergeant Humphreys is referencing to is once you jump that charge, that data is going to be vastly different for that gun that's going to be on that different charge for that specific round. So it's better to be on the same charge, so you guys have pretty much baseline data across the board, and not one gun's not jumping here, one gun's not jumping here. Does that make sense?
That's right. Route.
You'll see it once you look at a firing table.
Okay.
For the open sheath, is it the same elevation, different deflection?
Very good. Yes. Your ditty for an open sheath is same elevation, different deflection. Because you're changing the left-rights, but you're not changing the actual range to target at all. All you're doing is whenever you employ your mortars, your impacts are going to be slightly overlapping to just on the edge of each other. When you want an open sheath, you're opening up those impacts to where there's a bit of dispersion in between. So say you have 4 guns, and we have an ECR of 35 meters, right? 35 to 40, depending on who you ask. 35 meters, we'll call it. 35 meters times 4 is what? 70 times friggin' 240, right? 140 meters. If it's more than 140 meters, we're going to open up the sheath, so that way we can prosecute the targets along that axis. Okay, so say this target is 200 meters long, we're going to open it up, so that way our rounds are evenly dispersed on that target. There's going to be some gaps, but there's different missions that we can do to prosecute those. In this instance, we're just opening up the sheath so that way we can maximize on that, within that range. Make sense? Cool. Next one we have is a converged sheath. Converged sheath. Can anybody guess?
Same deflection.
Same target.
Same target.
I mean, it's all the same target, right?
Same deflection.
Same elevation, different elevation. Would it be different deflection because all the same?
The same elevation, different deflection.
It is same elevation, different deflection. Similar to the open sheath, you're just doing the opposite. So like the open sheath, you're opening it up. The converged sheath, you're just closing it. So it's the exact same ditty, different deflection, same elevation. All right. Why would we use a converged sheath?
Machine gun bunker.
Machine gun bunker, pretty average, right? What else could we use a converged sheath on?
FOV. Maybe a base, maybe?
Or like,
A base that's only 35 meters in size.
I was thinking maybe like, I know LEDs, whenever we stop, it's kind of like on a pause, so it's not like going to defensive position, so it's like.
Herringbone?
Yeah.
You're gonna use a convert sheet for that.
No, not the herringbone where they split out, but if you're stopped in a position for more than 15 minutes, you're supposed to have like one vehicle in the front.
Oh, coil?
Yeah.
Okay, well, a coil is also larger than 35 meters. So the main thing, right, machine gun bunkers, heavy armor, or buildings. Like, if you're going to try to basically burrow a hole through a building or break down that building, you can use a convert sheath. If you're going to try to take out anything with anything heavier than medium armor, you're going to use a convert sheath. You're also going to have to change the fuses, so that way you can actually make effects on that target. But, for instance, if we're firing on like one tank, and the tank's like right here, then these two guns aren't doing anything. So we're going to converge the sheaths, so that way we can have the max amount of impacts on that target. Who here has done some machine gun stuff? Okay, do we know the definition of enfilade?
Yeah, so defilade is defense, and then enfilade is just being able to,
This enfilade, deflate is like,
defilade is like.
I'm just asking enfilade.
Enfilade, I gotta remember the two.
Okay, the definition of enfilade is to have the long axis of the beaten zone the same or almost the same as the long axis of the target in order to facilitate as many rounds on target as possible.
So would that be like,
So the reason why I'm talking about enfilade is so that way it's similar in this instance. If we have a small target that has heavy armor, we want the maximum amount of our rounds on that target, right? So instead of doing like a parallel sheath, we would converge it in that instance.
so is that gonna be like get a machine gun trying to get a kill zone, or a choke point for enfilade?
Well, I can do like a whole machine gun thing. Actually, ask Sergeant Welsh. He's a lot better at it, but that was my class in combat instructor school was machine guns. So yeah, you can ask me later. It's not the whole goal. I'm just trying to help bridge that gap there. But essentially, yes, your beaten zone is your kill kill box, right? Anyway, cool. And then your final sheath is a non-standard sheath. A non-standard sheath, if you want, we're gonna do some crazy shit, right? So you want an impact right there, you want an impact right there, you want an impact over here, and you want an impact over here. And your gun line is right there. You see any correlation with those impacts?
No.
The answer is no. So what is the ditty for this one?
Different deflection, different elevations.
Different deflection, different elevation. The purpose is if you're hitting like if you're hitting vehicles with all the same target number, you can do, another way to do this is you can just prosecute different missions, but this is the easier way of if you're trying to hit extremely dispersed out targets and you want to get solid effects on all of them, then you would have this non-standard sheath. Non-standard really just means you could place your impacts wherever you want.
So would that make a CF?
Technically speaking, a CAD would be a non-standard sheath because you're hitting two different targets. It is true, but it's also technically not too because it's two different missions.
Like with this, say gun 1, 2, 3, and 4. Say gun 3 could fire on the farthest left target, and gun 1 could fire on the farthest right target. It doesn't matter.
You don't want crossfires. You never want crossfires. So, in this instance, right, if these are my 4 targets, I'm still gonna have gun 1 prosecute this target, gun 2 prosecute this one, 3 this one, and 4 this one. Because I'm not crossfiring. There's no such thing as, we're not doing crossfire. Because imagine you guys throw a volley and then you just, like 200 meters into the air, you see your 2 mortars just hit each other and explode. That would be kind of stupid because you just wasted 2 rounds. right? So we don't do that, all right? So those are your 5 types of sheaves. What are our 5 types of sheaves?
Parallel, linear, open.
Converge.
Okay, Robles?
Yes, sir. Parallel, linear, open sheet, converge sheet, non-standard sheet.
Okay, on your rocks, I just want you to write sheaves. So, and then you guys have to have those 5 sheaves memorized.
Is there any sheaves where like the gun line is parallel to each other, where they're like
So sheaves are in reference to the impacts to the target. The lay of the guns is not, it doesn't matter for sheaves. So yes, your guns can be laid in whatever way you want. Like there's specific doctrinal ways, just the straight line, the lazy W, the diamond shape, the circular sheaf, or the circular formation, whatever. Artie really only does circular. We only ever really do lazy W and just line. But also, if you're like cutting into terrain and that type of thing, you don't necessarily need a formation to set in, so long as you still have communication with your NTC and you're able to communicate back and forth. You can set in kind of in a crazy way if you want to. But that doesn't pertain to the sheath itself.
The sergeant, like, if it was a lazy W and you were trying to do a parallel sheet,
Then they would impact in the lazy W. It would impact in the same way as the lazy W.
Sergeant, it's 10:55.
Thank you for the reminder. So, if I were to do that, and I were to have my lazy W, so it would look like this. This is my lazy W. The impact would also impact in the lazy W. Because it's same deflection, same elevation. There's no changes. So the exact formation that the guns are in a parallel sheath, the impacts will impact the exact same way. That is why people like to do a lazy W when they employ, is because it gives depth to their impacts. Because then instead of a 35 to 40 meter depth, now you have a 70 meter depth, right? Okay, any other questions on sheaves?
Just a quick question, I don't know if I wrote it down right. For open and converge, is it the same thing? Like different deflection, same elevation?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, all you're doing is, if they're still on the line, all you're doing is you're either bringing them together or pushing them out. Any other questions on sheaves? At this time, it is 10:58. I'm going to break you guys out to chow. You guys will be back here at 12. There is gun equipment in here, so I do need a watch. Okay.
I'm on duty, I can do it.
Yep, 2 people. Let's get 2 people on watch, 30-minute rotation. So that way everybody can get shot. Cool. Good. Alright, you guys are the first 2. I'll be back probably in about like 30 minutes. Actually, I gotta check on the wall, so it might be a little later.
I got food.
No, that's it.
I'm just gonna warm up and come back.